Do you want to see the wall?
I just did the same thing. I had to flip the camera around. I've got it set up on a tripod right now, so I'm trying to not like bounce it around.
All right, guys. Welcome to the live hangout and Periscope dual stream with some gadget guy. No, there and and
Hey,
Booredatwork.
that's
Uh,
it's totally a trip. We're playing to two completely different audiences at the same time, doing a YouTube live broadcast and a Periscope live broadcast. So we'll see which one melts down first.
yeah, so we'll be taking questions on Periscope as well as Hangouts here. We'll try. If we miss your questions, we apologize because it's going to be hard going through both of them, but we'll see. So. Uh,
I'm going to dial you up just a little bit. You might hear a little bit of an echo, but that way, when people are going through the Periscope thing, they'll be able to hear both sides of the
Size.
conversation.
Okay.
So let me know if it gets too distracting. I'll shut it back down.
No, that's fine. All right, so let's kick things up. So Google I/O was the 4-hour press conference, 3 hours.
It wasn't that long, was it? I mean, they were supposed to start at 9. They started a little bit late, and then they ended a little bit early, didn't they?
Okay, let's check this out. It started. I saw the stuff with Android Pay, Android M. I left, went to go buy stuff at the store, then went to UPS and came back, and then I still caught it.
Well, yeah, but I mean, don't you live in Massachusetts where all of that's like a 2-minute walk? You know, like you get a T stop and then you go and drop something off, then you come back. So it's like really a 5-minute round trip, right?
All right. It's 10 minutes round trip.
Because it's not like it's an LA
from Jamaica. Hi, Jamaica.
An hour in traffic on the 405 or something like that.
True. So let's get to the nitty gritty of Google I/O. So Google announced Android M. They also announced Android Pay. They also showcase what they're doing with VR. In terms
Google Cardboard news. I was actually really excited about the Google Cardboard news.
Yeah, I wasn't apparently.
We'll talk about Google Cardboard.
So let's start.
I think you're wrong because I thought Google Cardboard was
no. I'm not discounting. I was just kind of bummed out because it wasn't flashy enough for me. I was like, yeah, okay, cool. All right, it's nice. But let's start with the easiest one, I think, which would be Android Pay. Before we get into the media stuff, because I think Android M has a lot of things we can discuss. But what were your thoughts on Android Pay?
Well, okay, so my thoughts on Android Pay are kind of the same thing that we got into when we heard that Google Wallet was finally going to be the service that enveloped Softcard, formerly known as ISIS. In that it's funny with people putting out topics and discussions about Google Pay or Android Pay, excuse me, as if it were some brand new service, because I've been using Wallet for a while now. So I don't see exactly what's completely new about this, other than this is a sort of a rebranding, so that they've got something better to compete against Apple Pay with. And Google Wallet kind of had some bad branding issues because of the fight between Google Wallet and Softcard, so they'll be able to move forward with a newly named service, even though those of us who have been using it have been using it just fine for the last couple years.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the problem was branding. Branding was a very big problem, and also it wasn't centralized. It didn't have that central Google feel. That was the problem with it. You know, I mean, yes, you could always download Google Wallet on every device and all that, but you didn't have that, like, you know, it's just there. Google Wallet is built in, is integrated fully, especially on the app side of things. You know, the in-app purchases were one of the things I liked with what they announced. You know, where, you know, now, if you want to order something from Target, you just put your fingerprint on there because you have a fingerprint scanner. I mean, that's it, done. It knows that you're paying for stuff. So I like that aspect there. But I agree with you on the branding side that they needed to just kind of rebrand and, you know, push things out and say, hey, yeah, this is our big competition. But it's also their fault too. Google always likes to do half steps in. Sometimes it's certain things they will kind of drop it, and just like Android Wear, and look what happens. You know, competitor comes with a full, you know, two feet in, and then they're like, oh shit, we got to rebrand. So
right. I guess there were just a couple announcements, like especially you were bringing up Android Wear too. I just thought it was a little funny, and I don't mean to talk trash. I'm actually very positive on this keynote, but I just thought it was a little frustrating as they're going through Android Wear announcements, and they're like, ooh, and now look, you can flick your wrist to move through your notifications, and you can draw emoji, and you're like, we've had that. That's not.
No. Carpal tunnel,
Well,
constantly.
but it was like, well, and also how you might be calculating your steps there with some wrist action for your fitness
Yeah. Or
practice.
somebody might think you're doing something, a little prude.
That's what I mean. Is apparently I just walked 6 miles today. That's terrible. But I mean, again, it was kind of funny, and it was also kind of frustrating at the same time. Like, oh, you can draw emoji, and then the crowd went wild, and you're like, where have you guys been? Google.
I have no idea.
I was expecting crickets because yeah, we know Android Wear has that. We've got videos on it. You can watch them. They're great.
Yeah, true. Blue Rod says, okay, guys, this is a trip. Juan is on a serious delay in Hangouts from Periscope, and your video is choppy on the phone. Yeah, Hangouts has been choppy. So, I mean, hey, guys, just a test. So it's not really, you can switch back and just watch it on Hangouts if you want to. But if you're on the road, this might be a good avenue to use. At least use Periscope to just hear what we are.
Well, we'll see. I mean, I'm going to leave the Periscope feed up and running too, just to see what happens. But it's probably not going to stay in sync with the YouTube. So
yeah, definitely.
Trying to watch both at the same time is probably bad.
So I mean, on Android Pay, it's one of those things where the rebranding was needed. The in-app purchase thing was also nice. Mm-hmm. But hopefully Google puts in its full back in and say, okay, we really want to do this, because the reason I say it is because Samsung's coming around with Samsung Pay next month.
Yep.
And Samsung can and will say with Samsung Pay, you can use it everywhere, not 700,000 retailers, everywhere, because of the
magnetic stripe.
Exactly, technology they use. So with that, that becomes a slight problem for Google, because then you might be fighting a fight with 3 competitors, and one of them is in your ecosystem.
Yeah.
Because especially internationally, think about it. If you have Samsung Pay and I travel to Nigeria, or I travel to somewhere in Southeast Asia, and I can still use my phone to make payments, I'm good. I'm really happy, because I can go anywhere and just say credit card. No problem. Just I got it. That's where some of that issues will come to play. But that's that. Anyway, moving on to Android M. What were your thoughts on the announcements on Android M?
I mean, I like what they're saying. It's been one of my biggest talking points with Android 5.0, is that I understand this was a big shift up in the code base for Google. It's some of the stuff is starting to get ironed out with 5.1.1, but I still feel that a lot of these changes in making Android prettier came at the expense of stability and performance, especially when you compare Android 5.0 on the Galaxy S6 versus Android 5.1 on the LG G4. I see a noticeable disparity between multitasking performance, how RAM is managed. And so anytime that they get on and start talking about performance optimization, streamlining the experience, I'm going to be on board, especially as we start getting into more developing market type conversations, which they also had a lot to say about at this keynote. So, I mean, some of those things I'm absolutely on board for. I'm trying to remember. Oh, fingerprint. Having a standardized code base for fingerprint, I think that'll be cool. Especially because you catch the Qualcomm announcement that they're going to be having some sort of special screen technology.
Yeah. That basically you don't need to have a fingerprint scanner anymore.
So as soon as we can start building in kit like that into our phones, where you don't have to have dedicated hardware, I mean, just imagine what you could do with LG's knock codes with also fingerprint scanning capabilities. I mean, stuff like that starts to become very interesting. So as soon as I get my hands on a phone that I can load up the developer preview, I'll probably start playing around with M.
Here's the problem. I do have one. I just don't like rooting phones. I've just stopped doing that so many years. I mean, is there an easier way? Can I just hit load?
No, because that's always been the big problem with Android, isn't it? Like how we get updates and stuff. But I guess lastly, the stuff that I thought it was really interesting. Microsoft is moving forward with Windows 10, and it's all about ecosystem. And now Google is moving forward with Android M. And while they're talking about optimizations and streamlining, a major part of that discussion is still services. Not necessarily Android, but bringing more functionality and smarter search to things like Google Now integration across the entire Android ecosystem. Mm-hmm. So again, I think it's another step in a very interesting conversation about how our phones have kind of plateaued. You know, like the hardware's pretty much good enough even with mid-range phones now. And so now what we're really focused on are services and what we can do to augment the ability of interacting with mobile services, mobile data, stuff like that. So, you know, seeing that long press contextual search is awesome because I was a huge fan of how older Android phones used to have a dedicated search button.
Yeah, it's true.
I really missed that, you know, like you were in an app, you had one hardware button, you could always hit that to search within the app. And it looks like they're actually kind of coming back to that, only now integrating it through Google Now, so that you always have contextual search and contextual reminders and contextual information delivery per app, but through Google's Android backbone.
True. No, I agree. Before I get to that point, my own things on Android M, things I liked were the app permissions. I'm tired of seeing my apps, you know, wanting access to my life, my soul, my children, you know, my grandkids all together in one package. So I like the app permission section there. I also like the, you know, like you mentioned, the native fingerprint support, which is also good. But the I'm very curious about the what's it called? Is it called Doze? Which is the power management.
So I mean, like stock Android has actually always had that kind of issue. You look at battery life on the Nexus, and it doesn't compare as well to phones where manufacturers like LG and Samsung have gone in and built in their own advanced power management features.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something that Google has needed to work on for a while. I just think it's kind of interesting that their first big issue in tackling it was standby performance. You know, so like when you don't use your tablet, was that really a huge problem for people leaving their tablets on but not using it and leaving the screen off? And having their tablet last 4 days when they weren't using it.
I think that was a bad analogy, but standby performance on Android is terrible. That's just a fact. I think you just used the wrong thing. The reason why I say that is, you look, like you said, you look at the Nexus compared to the Note 4 or the LG G4, you can see the difference there. I mean, with both of them have roughly around the same battery size, so we can say, okay, it's roughly around the same in terms of, you know, original power consumption source, but you know, they both run completely differently. So I just think I know the tablet thing was kind of dumb. They should have just used the Nexus or something and said, hey, you know, then that would be more relatable. But that's another thing there. In terms of Android M, there's really nothing. It feels like it's iOS. What's the version of iOS we're on right now?
8.
Yeah, it feels like 7.
I think I just got an update to 8.3.
Yeah, it feels like the jump from 7 to 8. Remember when iOS 7 came out with all these new features, calls, and everything just broke down? And finally iOS 8 came around and we're like, oh, thank God, you know, everything's fixed.
Well, it's funny though that a lot of the Apple, we don't have to spend too much time talking about this, but a lot of the Apple discussion is that iOS 9 is also going to be focused on optimization and performance improvements and bug fixes. As I think a lot of this stuff has kind of gotten out of hand. We've been trying to focus on fun features and pretty features, and I don't know that these companies have been as focused on improving the core experience. And that's going to be key when we talk about things like developing markets, because you can't have inefficient code running on low-power devices and have people jump on them. That's why Windows Phone has crushed the sub $200 phone market.
Did you see the map of Android devices worldwide?
Mm-hmm.
Did you see how Africa and Southeast Asia were black?
Yeah. There's not a lot of activity going on there, and even India, which had a pretty nice spread, didn't look like it had the same density as the United States with high-end devices. So it's always been critically. I think the last company that really did a good job of addressing it was Motorola. Yeah. And so now that Motorola is under Lenovo, I expect to see them continuing on that track. But it's something that Google proper needs to get after because it's not working. You know, like Lollipop was supposed to bring us, you know, or actually no, it was KitKat was supposed to bring us improved performance on lower power devices, but we just haven't seen the fruits of that labor, and moving forward, they're going to be left farther and farther behind.
No, I definitely agree, because I remember it was about 3 years ago where, you know how Facebook used to, I don't know if they do it now, they tell you where someone is posting from what device. It would say, you know, iPhone or iOS device, Windows Phone, or Android. I think they've taken that feature out. But I remember my cousins used to post and I see Windows Phone. So I was like, whoa, what's going on there? You know, and they're like, yeah, it worked well for what they wanted to do. because they could easily surf the web. There was WhatsApp, and that was pretty much a lot of the main things. So it's interesting you mentioned that. And then going back to the services, what I found interesting with Google's talk of services today was it didn't feel, I'm not trying to label them as Microsoft, but I remember when Microsoft was talking about services with Build, it was everywhere. Microsoft was just like, you know what? If you make it almost like it felt like they said, even if you create your OS today, we'll support you. We don't care. We just want to put it out there. And with this, it was literally very limiting. It was like Android and then, okay, yes, iOS, because we have to, not necessarily and to me, it kind of just.
You're not wrong. I get a little twitchy about stuff like that just because I'm the more I get into covering mobile stuff, the more I want cross-platform compatibility, the more I want services that work across all channels. I mean, we're going to be talking about photos, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean,
it's also one of those things where it's like I don't think it's a concession anymore when you announce like iPhone support. You know what I mean? I think that's actually the responsible thing to do, of course. I would also like to see Google end their Cold War with Microsoft, where we just start to use their services on Windows, especially when Windows 10 drops. But
I definitely agree because like you mentioned with Google Photos, right? You mentioned the unlimited backup and stuff like that, and the truth about it is that there's still a wide range of devices out there. People have and especially if you're supporting Windows 10, you're supporting Windows in general. You're not supporting Windows Phone or laptops anymore. You have a very wide range. So having especially some of those Google Photo features over there would be a nice way to tell Microsoft, because think about it, on Windows there's no proper yet, at least to Windows 10, no proper Windows photo management, if you will. I mean, Windows, we just throw it in folders, we do whatever we want with it.
Well, so we know that Windows 10 is going to be bringing a lot of the same features that we just saw today with Google Photos, which is bringing a number of the same features that we already saw with Apple Photos.
Yeah.
We're watching all these companies kind of circle each other with varying degrees of Venn diagram overlap, right? So, I mean, like, we might as well jump into Photos. Seeing a lot of the stuff that was released is, again, it's Google playing catch up to Apple in terms of the fluidity of the UI, bringing the pretty to the experience, how you can select items by dragging across your screen for the people watching the Periscope. I'll poke my finger into the phone camera. But it's also, the big killer app, of course, is free unlimited photo storage, which, if you've been following our rants on things like OneDrive, we've been using unlimited storage for everything if you're an Office 365 member. So now we've got free photo storage on Google Photos, but your drive is still probably going to be capped at a certain storage limit. And then you've got a bunch of really pretty sharing features. Well, OneDrive, you don't have as many pretty sharing features, but we've been playing with unlimited storage and a ton of free storage on a number of different services for a while now. So again, it's watching these companies kind of swirl each other as to who's going to have that killer experience, a killer app. I finally just started uploading. It's maybe one of the reasons why my internet connection's sucking right now. My phone is, because I don't upload photos to Google Photo. I upload photos to OneDrive. That's my preferred photo backup. So I've got like probably 3,000 photos going up to Google Photos right now. And I've gotten a dozen Auto Awesome alerts. And you're like, that's kind of cool, but it's also kind of obnoxious. So I'll be curious to see how all that stuff goes down. But again, it's another thing where iOS, Android, and web, not Windows. So I'll be curious to see if we do eventually get anything that matches that, because also the limitations are going to be pretty severe too, where you can only upload up to a 16 megapixel photo and you can only upload up to 1080p video. And I shoot most videos in UHD from my phone now, and a number of my phones shoot higher than 16 megapixel images.
I was going to say that because I was like, well, at first, I thought, wow, this is a photographer's dream. I was like, wait a minute, no, I'm like, especially if I wanted to get into into the hobby of photography, it becomes a pain. Depends on what camera I use, and also supporting raw files and all that. I know it probably doesn't necessarily state that it doesn't, but you have those issues. And again, like you said, we mostly shoot off our phones in UHD. I do anyway. It's only when I use my regular camera that I do not shoot in UHD because God no, that's just too much work to edit. But I mean, not to poo-poo Google Photos, because some people who are watching this are saying you guys are just dissing it. No, I mean, I'm glad they're bringing those features over, and I'm glad that they're separating it from Google Plus. Very important, because I don't, one of the things that I didn't like with Google Plus, and I still don't like even now. I'm not sure how it's going to integrate with Hangouts. Is that, we have that group Hangout chats, right?
Yeah.
And you throw in a photo in there, it's stuck in Google Plus photo category, whatever, forever.
Right.
Yeah,
You can't do anything else with it. You've got to like re-upload it somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. So it's one of those things where I'm glad they're doing the separation, and it's a nice feature, but I'm not exactly sure how best that will move things forward, like in general. Anyway, let's move on to.
I don't know if this is me or if this is you, but I just lost audio. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Can you nod if you can hear me? Okay, so I can't hear you. I don't know what just happened there.
All right, so Juan's audio.
I'm gonna jump out real quick and jump back in.
All right, cool. So Juan's audio is lost, but he will be jumping in and out as we speak right now. So anyway, talking more stuff on Google I/O. Besides the fact that Google mentioned, photos, they also talked about a couple of things like Google Maps, for instance, having offline capabilities, which is something I've been dying to get for a long time. He just jumped back in and out again. So it seems like Google Maps will be getting offline capabilities. Now, I've been using, my internet is also like running pretty choppy here. I wonder why. So I've been using, I use, Here Maps also, and Here Maps has done a very good job in offline maps and things like that. And Google Maps hasn't really done that well. So, hopefully now we'll get to have offline maps, and where you can download per state, or at least country or region or even continent. So you can have those maps and that data for you, in case you lose that, mobile data or whatever the case may be there. So, I mean, that's also interesting. Now, I was going to talk about the cardboards and VR, but I'm going to wait for Juan to try and get back on that, to expand on that. But any questions? Let's see. Lurod says, Juan, what phone are you using for Periscope? I believe he's using the G Flex 2, was what he was using. So I presume that was that. And then he says, are you on Wi-Fi or mobile data? I think he was on Wi-Fi, but I could be wrong. Another question here is from Juan Irving. He says, how do you think Android Pay will affect Samsung Pay on other services? So we talked about that earlier, but just to reiterate on that is, I think Android Pay is gonna come in and it's gonna work in the same place as how Apple Pay is working now for iOS users. You can use it. It's gonna be very simple and it's a little bit more streamlined. Now, I think Samsung Pay, Samsung might have that edge because if you really think about it, Samsung has majority of the share of sales on Android devices, and Samsung Pay lets you use more than just your NFC. So you can actually use your regular credit card readers. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
All right, good. I was just answering some questions before we went to VR and talking about, I just answered some questions on how Android Pay will affect Samsung Pay. I was just saying that I don't think it will affect, I think Samsung Pay might affect Android Pay more because there are more Samsung devices than there are any other Android device out there. So if Samsung Pay expands on that, and if Samsung is looking to sell about 70 million S6s this year, you're looking at a huge rollout there for that.
I'd also just be really curious if Samsung opens up their hardware to play with Android Pay.
Yeah.
If Android Pay's authentication can use Samsung's magnetic card verification, that could actually be really good for the ecosystem as a whole. I just don't see those two companies playing nice like that. I don't know. I mean, yeah. I think it just takes me back why I was initially angry, and we don't have to spend too much time on this. Why I was so angry about Softcard and ISIS is that it set the entire industry back 2-3 years. I mean, we could have been playing with mobile payments, NFC-based payments, security-based, data-enabled payments. We could have been playing with them years ago, but instead we had that Cold War between the carriers and Google. And again, Google loves getting into these kind of fights, which seem to halt innovation between major companies. But again, I lay this one more at the feet of the carriers than I do Google, obviously because Google won just as they should have from the very beginning. But now I think unfortunately Google's going to be way behind in terms of adoption and implementation because you've got the iPhone with a much larger user base of people that are already using that service, and comparatively, and then Samsung will be dropping this out on future phones where theirs is going to be more compatible with magnetic card stripe readers. I don't know. I don't know what really gets Google caught up in that arena other than
Licensing Samsung's tech.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's the only way.
Well, and that's not even going to be Google's decision. That'll be whether or not LG wants to license Samsung's tech. And if LG licensed Samsung's tech, wouldn't they be using Samsung Pay? I mean, just because you're licensing some of that hardware stuff doesn't necessarily mean that you get to use it on whatever you want to use it on. It would maybe just be a licensing deal that brings more Samsung Pay customers to Motorola or HTC.
Messy.
It is. I mean, this is a really ugly ecosystem for Google right now, and it didn't have to be. But again, I blame the carriers on that one for trying to institute a competing service and halting the entire industry 2 years.
Okay. All right, let's move on to cardboard. But before I do, I have to just quickly run and check something so you can start off on cardboard because I don't like it anyway.
Because you don't like. Okay, we'll see how this goes. And I think I just lost my Periscope setup too. Awesome. So, Google Cardboard. I am a big fan of the Google Cardboard, but of course, my preferred method of utilizing Google Cardboard is with my LG VR reader, VR viewer for the G3. So really, my big thing about Cardboard, especially, is they're going to be bringing a greater compatibility for larger phones. So when you get a Google Cardboard, they'll now support phones up to 6 inches on the diagonal. Which is kind of funny though that I don't know of any companies that are putting out new 6-inch phones.
Um, Huawei, I think, might be the only one.
Oh, okay. Because I thought a number of them were looking at more like a 5.7-inch size screens. But anyway, because we don't even have like the G Flex 2, which could have been really interesting for a 6-inch screen. But anyway.
So what phones does it support?
Well, that's just it. Is Google Cardboard will now support phones up to 6 inches in size. So
Okay.
when you get your little cardboard kit, it's going to be easier to assemble. So that's kind of cool too. But really, it's about talking about bringing a new, more accessible tier of delivery and content to consumers. And just as like I was showing off my G3 VR viewer, which I thought that's a really easy way to interact with VR content without having to spend a lot of money. Because like Samsung's solution is very similar. You dock your screen into a headset, and then you can do VR stuff. But Samsung's solution for that starts at $200, which I think is a lot. Is going to be a pretty high barrier for a number of people to engage with. Whereas you can go and buy a $30 pre-made, pre-cut kit made out of actually better material than cardboard, just based on the Google Cardboard standard, and start interacting with VR content directly from your phones. But really what was most exciting for me were the improved tool sets that are eventually going to be given to content creators. So they showed off this crazy camera rig with 16 different cameras on it. But even just moving into little action cameras, like I don't have, like I've got my little Kodak SP360, giving us better tool sets to produce content even from these little guys, which can then be uploaded directly to YouTube, and then allow people to interact with that through some kind of virtual reality headset or kit, is really, I think, the most compelling aspect of what we're going to be looking at for Cardboard moving forward. Damn it, I just lost your audio again. So you talk about Cardboard since you don't like it, and then I'll jump back in just a bit. This is ridiculous.
Testing, testing. Can you hear me now? If you guys can hear my audio, let me know, Lou Rod. I am not sure what is going on. I can see my mic move, but have no idea. Let me know if there's any audio with this. Okay. Interesting. So it seems like either Hangouts is having issues, and can you hear me?
I absolutely can.
Lou Rod said I lost audio for a bit too, and it looked like I did.
I don't know. This is I don't even think this is me trying to do periscoping at the same time. I think these are some issues going on with YouTube
Hangouts. Yeah. I was just saying quickly, just to recap that as much as I like the tools they have for a very cost-ineffective cardboard, I wanted to see, maybe just because I'm in this mode of seeing everybody put their best VR or augmented reality foot forward. I wanted to see Google to give me the same thing, and also say, okay, fine, this is cardboard too, but this is what we want to achieve, and we want cardboard to eventually get to that point on a very cheap scale. And all I got was cardboard, and I was like,
you know, I don't disagree with you. I do think Google does need to come out with something that is VR forward for consumption, but we're also talking Google I/O. We're talking a developers conference. We're not talking a consumer conference. And so at I/O, giving us better content creation tools makes a lot more sense to me, because we're already seeing, you know, like there's been all this talk about Oculus. You know, Oculus was supposed to have a consumer version the end of last year, the beginning of this year. We're almost halfway through the year. We haven't seen Oculus deliver.
Yeah, that's true. I know. I went through that with Sam. It's 2016 is official now.
Well, and there's also HTC with the Revive, working with Valve. We're hearing again, this is what VR is going to be eventually someday when we get there. They're not actually delivering. Do you know what I mean? The consumers don't have an opportunity to walk in, pick up a headset, and just buy it, with the exception of Samsung. And even with Samsung, we're still seeing a lack of content. So until we can get more content out there, a product like the Revive and the product like Oculus doesn't make quite as much sense until you can experience more than just a roller coaster simulator. You've got to have a wealth of content. So for a developer conference for I/O, I thought their messaging on cardboard was on point, because they did talk about the goofy cardboard viewer and how it was kind of a joke when they first put it out, but it's still the #1 resource for people to interact with VR. It's the #1 way people can interact with virtual reality today. And you don't even need the viewer. You can at least see how it's going to respond on your phone just by loading the cardboard preview up. You can get your little cardboard app loaded up on your phone and see, you know, it's going to split the window, and you can see how fluid it's going to work on your phone right now, which isn't something that anyone can do with any of these other solutions. You can't just go get an Oculus and not spend a couple $100s for the privilege. Razer's solution, their VR solution, still, I mean, it's a weighty investment to be able to interact like that.
I definitely agree. I think what spoiled my view is because I was in Chicago this weekend, and my buddy has Oculus set up developers version 2. And I was playing Elite Dangerous, and I was like, so when you mentioned cardboard, I was just like, my mind was just like, nah, sorry, I can't do this. I just can't. But I mean, now that you've explained it to me, thank you very much for bringing me down to earth.
And I just got a Periscope comment from Juanderful, a viewer. There's a fellow Juan, because we're kind of awesome. Saying, you know, Samsung has content, 360-degree content on their YouTube channel, and you're like, that's cool. I've been shooting 360 by 180-degree content with, you know, consumer tools now. That's not really enough content to justify someone going out to spend even $200 on a Gear VR headset. We really do need to have more support for a wider developer community to start embracing these different tools. And the fact that, you know, we're looking at Samsung has a headset, but you're still going to YouTube, to their YouTube channel, to interact with their content. YouTube is going to be the backbone for a lot of this interactive content moving forward, and that's, again, one of the things I was really happy to see them improving the tool set that developers and content creators will have to distribute their content.
No, that I agree with you. I think that's very true. But I think in terms of VR, I think VR has a long way to go in perceptions and mindsets. Because, for instance, I'm one of those people. I don't want to watch YouTube on VR. I could care less about that. I'd rather game on VR. So I think it's one of those things where eventually it will find its footing, will find a place, will have different avenues from cost effective all the way to your super high end, just like everything else.
No, totally. And I think they also touched on the wealth of potential content with I forget what their expeditions program, is that what it was called?
Yeah.
Where
Yeah,
they're
that
going
was
to
the
reach
one with
out.
the classrooms and
Yes, exactly. And so reaching out to teachers, I think that is an excellent example of one potential avenue for people who are looking to create immersive, interactive content is to capture the education market. And I was actually kind of disappointed that they made a big deal out of schools, because that's a lot of content I personally would rather interact with than trying to fire up like Discovery Channel 4 or like TLC or History Channel, which no longer have really educational content and are all doing reality TV crap. I would rather be on a Google Cardboard headset looking at, oh hey, look, I'm at the Louvre. Like this is awesome.
yeah, no, I definitely agree with that one. It's one of those things where hopefully somebody can put a 360 camera on a ship that goes to Mars and we can see our solar system in
Totally.
time lapse. I mean, stuff like that is great. It definitely is. Couple of other things that they announced: the whole Google Now sharing. Is it called Google Tap, if I'm not mistaken?
For the which one?
Google Now, the whole tap feature now that you can, that's more interactive. I forgot the name of the feature, but it's Google Now has a new feature where it has better in-app integration. So they had a demo where the guy was listening to music from, I think, the DJ Skrillex, and he basically just said,
that's what I'm talking about. Is that it's like an improved contextual search?
Yes,
Yeah, for Google Now. So yeah, it is. It's a long press on the home button will now pull up information contextually based on what's on your screen. So that's a perfect example. You're listening to Skrillex and you can long press on your home key and say, so what's his real name? And Android will now be smart enough to say, oh, this person is listening to Skrillex. That is probably the his that he's referring to. So now I can search based on that contextual information to then pull all that information up and give you a relevant response. As opposed to the way that, like Siri, for example, is a very simplified web search feature that can kind of respond to voice commands. It looks like Google Now, they're really trying to make it a bit more like Cortana or even IBM Watson in how machine language can move you into more colloquial search so that you don't have to just, search via the same kind of keyboard style search queries that we usually put up.
No, it's very true. I like that. I like the aspect about it. I like those kind of things that we're doing there. I mean, in all, how would you summarize Google I/O, at least the keynote, from what you got from Google today?
I very positive. Again, very positive. I'm always going to have criticisms about certain things, like when we see a company like Apple or Google trumping up certain features that we've had on other devices and other phones. Like the Google Photos thing. I'm really happy to see a lot of that. I still have to say, yeah, we've already been playing with a number of those features on other platforms and stuff. And I really hoped that they would have talked more about their self-driving cars. I can't handle hearing myself all time delayed. God, yeah. Periscope is such a trip. So far, a semi-successful Periscope outing for my first Android Periscope stream. But no, I really hoped that they would have talked more about the self-driving cars. I wanted to hear more about Project Loon, their atmospheric balloon data sharing service. It was sort of like a little bullet point at the end of the keynote. And I really did like what they had to say about Android One and developing markets and moving those services forward. Just to touch real quick, I don't know if you talked about that when I was off, but the ability to offload YouTube. They were talking about where data is really expensive. You might not be able to stream over cell phone carrier networks inexpensively. So now you can pre-cache YouTube content moving forward. It's something we've been hearing a lot of noise about on Android One handsets. It's something I want here in the first world country.
General.
And anytime we have a community of people on any kind of data cap, that's a service I want. But then they also were talking about bringing improved mapping capabilities.
Yeah, offline maps. Finally.
Well, not only offline, because you can kind of cache now, but also being able to do turn by turn after you've cached.
Yeah, and that's something that we've been doing with Nokia Maps forever.
Oh, with Here Maps, absolutely. But again, that is an exciting feature to move forward, and it's something that I really wish I had here on my premier top-of-the-line Android handsets in a first-world country where I've got fast access to 4G LTE data, I would still prefer being able to offload maps. So.
Oh no, no, I definitely agree. For me, I was tad disappointed. I wasn't expecting devices or anything. I wanted to hear more about.
And I was like, that's another thing too. Is like I had a number of people in my Twitter stream is like, well, they didn't announce a new Nexus. This is bullshit. You're like, you're an idiot. Please remove yourself from the internet. They announce new hardware like that.
People are used to that just because they always had a hardware announcement, and then I think it was last year, the last 2 years, they kind of shifted that away till the end of the year. But I wanted to hear more about, their connectivity of devices, not Internet of Things, but just like the way Microsoft has a whole inclusive ecosystem, or Apple has the convergence, sorry, whatever they call it, where iOS and Mac operating system combined together can talk to each other. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I just can't remember what it's called, but I wanted to see what they were going to do with Chrome and how that affects Android and things like that. And I didn't get much from Chrome. I don't like Chrome, so I actually wanted to see either disappear or improve in some form or fashion. So I was kind of disappointed at that. In that aspect. Android Pay was cool. The stuff with Google Now I really liked. But overall, it was kind of middle of the road for me. It was improvements rather than seeing and a few blips of like things that are really cool, like you mentioned with the balloons, self-driving cars. But I guess you're not ready to talk about that yet, just because it's not there yet. But main thing I was looking for was something to do with either combining Android and Chrome or moving towards that path for those operating systems.
No, I would definitely agree there too. It's something I've been hoping to see Google talk about for a couple of years now, is a unification of their various platforms as they start to encourage app developers to port their Android apps over to Chrome OS. It would be nice to hear what the back and forth, because if I could have a true desktop browser version of Chrome on an Android device, that would be really hot. That's definitely something I would be interested in. I would really like that kind of functionality. There's a plenty of stuff that I think Google could definitely talk about moving forward. But let's be honest, you really just wanted to hear more about Google Glass version 2. That was you were super excited about, and you've just not always talking about it. You just can't shut up about how much you love Google Glass, how it's your favorite, it's the best thing ever. And I know you were definitely disappointed that they didn't talk about it more. So I feel for you, man. I know. Eventually we'll get more Google Glass, and you can get your super cool Locutus of Borg look going on. And yeah, I know. I'm sad too. So. And on that note, I lost your audio again. God damn it. You're going to wrap it up? All right, I'm going to say my goodbyes now. Thanks for having me on. I'm sorry that my audio kept conking out. So it's you. It's you. I don't know who. Wait, hold. He's got the one finger up. And I don't think that didn't make any difference. Oh, wait.
Yep. It's me. Hangouts keeps cutting out my audio. It wasn't you. It's actually me. Actually me. So yeah. That whole rubbish you talking about Google Glass.
No, I know. It's totally your favorite. You're always like, oh, I so love Google Glass. I'm Edibong. It's my favorite. Just like that. I totally nailed your voice right there.
Yeah. I can see you're wearing your new Creed shirt. It's okay. That's all I'm going to talk about. Green Ranger and White Ranger on the same t-shirt.
It's the commentary on the inner struggle between the forces of darkness and light within our own souls. It's a metaphor.
Yeah, it is. And but anyway, just wrapping up. Thank you guys for joining us on Hangouts as well as Periscope. Lou Rod, yes, I did a Periscope, but I actually ended mine a little earlier than. I think yours is still going on.
I tried to jump back in just to see. So one, we've established two things. One, Periscope does not like it when you stream Periscope and Google Hangouts on the same Wi-Fi connection at the same time. Two, the front-facing camera on the LG G Flex 2, kind of crap. Those are the things that we've established.
Well, I don't even think it's that though. I think Periscope does not do a good job, and on Android anyway, because I went to watch your video. The quality looked just as bad as when I was watching Warren's video, and he was using the S6 Edge, S6,
Oh, wow.
I think. So it just doesn't handle video compression very well.
Absolutely agree, James.
On Android, not on iOS, because a lot of the iOS users I've seen have been much better. So we'll see.
Yeah,
If
I
they
wouldn't
fix
be.
that.
I mean, like, let's be honest. I wouldn't be surprised. Their main focus on all of these, Periscope and Meerkat, was to get iOS out, and Android's always kind of an afterthought
Now
in rolling out compatibility.
the question I want to ask is why don't we have this by Google or YouTube?
I mean, yeah, that's a whole other can of worms we can get into.
All right. So on that note, we will end this discussion and we will talk about that some other time in life. But anyway, guys, if you want to check out Mr. Juan Bagnell, check him out at Some Gadget Guy or Juan Bagnell on YouTube. You will find him there. On Periscope, it is also Some Gadget Guy. On Twitter, it is Some Gadget Guy. On Instagram, it is Some Gadget Guy. And on Google Plus, it is Juan Bagnell.
Correct.
Yes, I got it all right. Good. Meerkat, I don't know because I don't have it, and it's not Android yet.
I haven't even. Isn't it Meerkat? Didn't they just roll out their update to bring in?
Beta.
Oh, that's bullshit. All right. Anyway.
Yeah. So, and if you want to check us out, it's Bored at Work and everything from YouTube to Android, whatever. Android.
You need a nap.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you very much. And always enjoy your entertainment.
Bam.